Have you purchased your ticket? If not, you still have time to register. Please join Programs for Parents at our annual Week of the Young Child virtual breakfast. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Week of the Young Child. The Week of the Young Child is a time to recognize that children's opportunities are our responsibilities and to recommit ourselves to ensuring that each and every child experiences the type of early environment at home, at childcare, at school, and in the community that will promote their early learning. During this event, we also honor members of the early childhood community and thank them for their hard work and dedication to young children. We have the honor of hosting a conversation with Kay Hendon. Ms. Hendon's focus has been high quality, affordable, accessible programs for vulnerable infants and toddlers. Following our conversation with Ms. Hendon, there will be a roundtable discussion, Transitioning Young Children Back to School, with early childhood champions Dr. Gerard Costa, Director at the Center for Autism and Early Childhood Mental Health at Montclair State University, Dr. Gerald Fitzhugh II, Superintendent of Orange Public Schools, Samantha Lott Velez, Executive Director for the Office of Early Childhood at North Public Schools, and Naomi Donnell, Parent Chair of the Education Committee for the Essex County Council for Young Children. Purchase your tickets today. Click on the link in our bio to register. Let's celebrate the Week of the Young Child. Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Just wanted to let you know that we will be starting in about 2 minutes.
Kendra, this is Catherine. Would you like me to put back up the Week of the Young Child virtual breakfast slides?
Yes.
Yes, please. Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say good morning to everyone. It's such a beautiful morning today. My name is Kendra Orta, Community Liaison at Programs for Parents, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of our agency to the Week of the Young Child virtual breakfast. We are so excited to see each and every one of you. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Week of the Young Child, and we are excited that you were able to participate. I just want to thank each and every one of you for the contribution that you make to the lives of children each and every day in your work. And we recognize and see you and appreciate you for everything that you do for the lives of children. Here are greetings from Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. I want to first congratulate today's honorees, Dale Goodwin and Ray Ocasio, true champions of families and young children. This past year has been difficult for all of us, but especially families with young children, as schools closed and childcare became hard to come by. This, of course, extended to parents who were forced to stay home during the early months of the pandemic. The impact will be felt for years, especially among young mothers, as responsibilities for childcare often fell to them. The American Rescue Plan, signed by President Biden, sought to alleviate some of the pain of COVID. It includes an expanded child tax credit, an expanded and fully refundable child and dependent care credit, and an expanded earned income tax credit, as well as increased food stamp benefits and paid leave. This historic investment is projected to cut child poverty by over 40%, and will protect our most vulnerable by lifting over 4 million children above the poverty line. These steps demonstrate the commitment we've made to helping average families weather this storm. President Biden has already indicated that his upcoming infrastructure bills will ensure that our children, or in my case, grandchildren, have the best chance to come out of this pandemic with greater opportunities than they had before it began. To meet that goal, I am working with some of my colleagues in the House to make these tax credits for families permanent, as well as include pieces of my Healthy Mom Act, which will create a new healthcare special enrollment period for pregnant women. While the past year has indeed been painful for so many throughout this pandemic, programs for parents did not miss a beat and continued to work to connect families to quality childcare services in their own communities. In a time when families needed their help more than ever, programs for parents doubled down on their commitment to our children. So I want to thank Beverly, a Program for Parents, for inviting me to speak to you all, as well as Kay Hendon and Councilwoman McIver and all those who have made a commitment to making New Jersey the best place to raise a child. God bless.
That was such an impactful message from Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. I would now like to take this time to introduce you to no other than the incomparable, articulate, early childhood champion, boots on the ground, Dr. Beverly Lynn.
Wow, thank you for that introduction, Kendra. That is very much appreciated. I want to just make a few comments about the Congresswoman. And first of all, thank her for her kind remarks and just share a couple of things about her. She represents New Jersey's 15th Congressional District. She's the first Black woman to represent New Jersey in Congress, and she is a member of the Appropriations Committee. And I'm sure all of you know that's a very important committee these days. Her legislative work seeks to bridge the gap for Americans that are less fortunate and vulnerable. In March 2016, along with her peers, she founded the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls. She serves on the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues, so she has firsthand knowledge of the impact of the pandemic on women and families, and is working tirelessly to put things in motion to help families in New Jersey. I called her friend and saw her as we are both members of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I also want to acknowledge my board president, Lance Laverne, and I believe all of our board members are on this morning, and specifically Pamela Taylor, the chair of our fundraising committee. Thank you all. Good morning, everyone. We are so honored to have you with us today. We are very excited. This is the 50th anniversary of the Week of the Young Child, as Kendra indicated. The Week of the Young Child is an opportunity to showcase the work of early educators and caregivers and celebrate the champions that are committed to ensuring children have the best possible start in life. And for those of you who are familiar with the week-long celebration, today is Working Together Wednesday. I could not think of a more appropriate person to speak with this morning than Kay Hendon, who has over the years spent a great deal of time encouraging partnerships and collaborations in early childhood field. Kay is an experienced executive, thought leader, and has a proven track record in early childhood leadership and policy. Kay recently retired from the Nicholson Foundation, and I thought this would be the perfect time to sit down with her and have a conversation about the work that we share and care so deeply about. Just when we plan to do this, she announces that she would be working with the Terrell Fund as the special advisor for early childhood policy. So the work continues. Kay, will you join me?
Hi, Beverly.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, and it's so wonderful to see you. And this is such an honor to invite me to have this conversation. I've been to many Week of the Young Child breakfasts that you've put on. I've heard so many interesting people and listened to wonderful center directors and childcare providers and had wonderful meals at these events. And I'm just really thrilled to be able to talk with you today.
Well, thank you for agreeing to share the screen with us this morning. And let me just start off, Kay, and we talked a lot about this being a conversation and not necessarily an interview. However, I have to pose this first question to you. When you hear us refer to you as a champion for children, what image does that conjure up for you?
Well, first of all, I guess I think of myself more as a cheerleader than a champion, but the image that it conjures up to me is really an image of working with all of you who are out there today, the many meetings that we've been in together, seeing you sit around a table and really express your passion, your persistence, your resilience, your dedication, your creativity to make better things happen for children and families, because you are all champions. And I can't even begin to name you all, but obviously Programs for Parents and AC&J and NJAEYC and SITE and Jerry Costa's group at Montclair and the Family Child Care Association and the other CCR&Rs and the heroic public schools and our heroic friends in DFD and DCF and DOE. I think you're all champions, and it's been such a privilege to be able to work with you and meet you all in New Jersey.
Okay, one of the things that we realized, I guess a few years ago, is that both of us have had similar journeys in this field. But we've never had a conversation about what your journey looked like. I had the distinct opportunity of meeting with Jerry Costa a few years ago and talked about, my grandmother took care of children. She was the community child care provider. Tell us a little bit about your story. What brings you to where you are today, and what are your passions, and what's led you to this place in life right now?
I'm going to tell you basically three things: my own children, obviously, my insurance agent, and Head Start. So when I was a young parent with very young children, a kind of aggressive man got into our house somehow to sell us insurance, and we had no intention of buying any insurance. But he said what he did sell us was preschool. He said, you have to put your children in this wonderful preschool. It happened to be a Montessori school. And he said, don't bother saving money for college. Spend your money on preschool. And he was very persuasive. He was more persuasive about the preschool than he was about the insurance, and we did it. So that was my introduction to the field of early childhood education, and it was a wonderful experience. And we moved from Albuquerque to Denver, and I actually ended up becoming momentarily, really, the director of a preschool there, although we then moved to Madison, Wisconsin. So that's the insurance agent story. The next part of the story is that when we got to Madison, the preschool there that we'd selected for our children was I call it homogenous. It was an all-white preschool. And that was just when Head Start was starting up. So that tells you how old I am and how long ago this was. And so myself and a few other parents, partnered with a woman named Barbara Shade, who was quite a heroine herself, who was developing Head Start in that city. And we worked out you could call it an exchange, you could call it a merger, you could call it the first Head Start Childcare Partnership. But some of our children who were going to go to the preschool, well, I should also add that we helped them find a teacher and a classroom of materials that was similar to our preschool. And in combination, in conversation with the parents and the staff of the Head Start program, and we sent 5 of our children to that Head Start classroom, and 5 of the Head Start children whose parents wanted them to came to the preschool. So it was a wonderful experience. My son still remembers being in that program as a 4-year-old child. I think he remembers the bus rides more than anything else. I have to tell you, a funny story about it is that every once in a while, the bus didn't show up to bring him back. And I would call and they would say, oh yeah, Luke's asleep in the back of the bus. So, but the other part of this story is that as a Head Start parent, I was allowed to participate in Head Start parent activities. And we received such wonderful leadership and advocacy training as parents. And it taught me how to operate in the world of parenthood and early childhood to a certain extent, as well as the other parents. And I actually wrote a paper about this later and did a study on this later about the impact that that training and that Head Start experience had on parents' future role in their children's education experiences in the public schools. So I'm not just an early childhood advocate. I have to admit that I'm a Head Start advocate. And I loved doing that and being that. And I later went to graduate school, and one of my student placements was as a Head Start parent worker.
Wow, what a wonderful story. And and I'm not sure you know this, I'm a Head Start parent as well. Both of my children went to Head Start, and you are absolutely right. The training was just out of this world. It really changed the way you looked at things, how you did things. And I participated in parent training with my when my youngest son was in Head Start, and really continued that whole philosophy the rest of my career in terms of parents must have a seat at the table. And it's not just a token seat, it's a seat where they get to make decisions and provide input and are part of the planning process. So I believe very deeply in that. So thank you for sharing that, Kay.
I'm glad to. I don't think I did know you had been a Head Start parent, Beverly. The other thing that I believe is that the reason that we still have Head Start in this country and that it's flourishing and growing is because of that parent training. That Head Start parents come by the busload if there's a threat to Head Start. And I just feel so passionate about that role that they play too, that they can demonstrate their memories, their passion, their enthusiasm, their appreciation for Head Start in so many different ways. So yeah, that's a thing we have in common.
Absolutely. So we learn something every day.
Right. We also have we've also both worked for government as well as in the private sector. And I think you know that I was a CCR&R director. And one of my accomplishments that I'm kind of proud of is that I launched the CCR&R network in the state of Wisconsin when I worked there. So that was an experience trying to help multiple counties come together and develop their own CCR&Rs.
I'm sure that had its own challenges, even back when you were working on it. And it's still a challenge. R&Rs, we have our unique roles and responsibilities in New Jersey and across the country. And I think everybody has a different vision of what that looks like. So you to be applauded if you created a network and everybody was working very cohesively together. That's not always possible.
Right. Yeah. But it's an important function. It's become one of the foundations of our early care and education system, the CCR&R role.
I absolutely agree. How would you characterize the state of affairs with regard to children and families in our state right now?
That is such a big question, Beverly. But first I would say this, that you probably know that New Jersey is often near the top of the list of one of the best places in the country to raise a child. And I think that we are at the top of the list in terms of the amount of money that we spend on preschool, our pre-K programs. And our Abbott preschool program has been a model for the development of pre-K throughout the country with its credentialed teachers and its mixed delivery system and its family workers and all of the wonderful things about that Abbott program, most of which have continued as pre-K has expanded throughout our state. So there are many wonderful things about New Jersey. I also think that it's important to, we don't have to remember, we know it only too much, that New Jersey is full of disparities. We have major disparities in regard to maternal child health. We have huge disparities. Some counties have a poverty level for children of 5%. Other counties, over 20% of the children are living in poverty. The same if you look at grade level reading scores. There's a huge difference from county to county and even more from school district to school district. So I think that disparity issue is something that we have to face up to throughout our country, but in New Jersey, where we all work, we have to think about this as a bigger problem that goes way beyond childcare and that's affecting our children's lives. The disparity of housing, the segregation in public schools. It's a fact of our life that we haven't solved yet and that we need to be working on. But from our point of view, childcare, we're in the same childcare crisis that all the other states are in, and that crisis was there even before the pandemic. There's not enough affordable, available, quality childcare, especially for infants and toddlers. And parents are in crisis because they can't take jobs because they can't find childcare or afford childcare. And children are in crisis because they're in a lot of unfortunate situations that don't give them what they need in life. So I think that that's certainly the downside of our life, and that we are all working hard to address. But
go ahead.
Well, I could just say that even before the pandemic, there were some significant gains. There was a little bit of a decrease in poverty. We got a wonderful increase in our infant toddler subsidy rate in New Jersey. We got money in the state budget to help address the minimum wage that was affecting childcare workers. We got more and more money for pre-K. We have made some progress. It's not that we've just been standing still. So I think that that part of it has changed for the better. And still, during the pandemic, a lot of things fell to pieces. And our state rose to the challenge and introduced all kinds of emergency responses, just did a heroic job of addressing what was going on with that pandemic. And I'm hoping that we'll come back, although many centers closed and will never open again. And many home-based providers rose to the occasion, and we saw more children going into home-based care. So is the state of our state better or worse? I think it's still worse because I don't think the economy has recovered, and I don't think the childcare sector has recovered, obviously. And we certainly haven't addressed those big issues of our crisis. But I think one of the wonderful things that's happened that you heard our Congresswoman talk about this morning is that the federal government has stepped up with a major influx of federal dollars for childcare. Those dollars, I think the American Rescue Plan is going to be maybe around $700 million for the state of New Jersey. And none of us know how that's going to be used. We maybe can talk about that a bit later. And I think it's a challenge for states to figure out what's the best way to use it, and to use it both to not just to rescue the situation, but also to build a solid foundation for the future. But I think that's the real importance of it, is that we have this new kind of recognition from government about the true importance of childcare to all of our lives and to our economy, to our culture, to our future. And that is extremely important. And some of the strategic responses that will emerge out of this may become a permanent foundation for a new and better system.
Mm-hmm. So in the midst of all of the challenges and threats and things that are going on, there's great opportunity.
Right.
There's opportunity to rethink what was, what is, and what can be. There's an opportunity to engage other people in the conversations that may have been left out in the past. There's an opportunity to view the situation through a number of different lenses, the lens of equity, the lens of diversity, the lens of, all the disparities. Those kinds of lenses, I think, are new at the table, and that can actually help people think through a process, think through a system that will be equitable and meet the needs of all children. So I think the opportunity is there, Kay. So I'm going to ask this loaded question. If you had the power and the authority, what would be the one change you would make in state governance as it relates to early childhood education?
You know, Beverly, I want to talk about, I'd like to talk about dozens of changes, but I won't go through the whole drumbeat of all the things that we all know that we need.
Right.
Well, I have to mention compensation for people who work in childcare, but one of the things that I think we need to do, and this is perhaps the biggest challenge, is recognize that childcare needs to be a public good. It needs to be like parks and libraries and Social Security. It needs to be there for everyone. So I think the challenge is, how do we think about that? And how do we think about the steps that we need to take to get there? We're so far from it, but I think that is the ultimate goal. But the second thing I would say is that I think we need bigger capacity in our state to address all these challenges. And I'm not sure how we get that. Maybe it's a governor's commission. Maybe it's establishing a strong intermediary. A lot of people have been talking about an intermediary to handle childcare facilities development. What about an intermediary pseudo-governmental organization that includes both the private and public sector representatives and a lot of expertise and a lot of staff capacity to really think about and help people plan and design a new system, to fund infant toddler care development in the right way throughout the state, and to help providers manage that, to fund development of facilities so that we have places, the right kinds of places for our children before they begin attending public school, to really help get the programs out there and help develop those programs and get them out to the state. I'm not sure what the right way is. I just feel as though we have many dedicated people working for state government, and they've worked just, I can't imagine what the last year has been like for them, but they simply don't have the tools and the people and the personnel they need to do the job, nor can they be as nimble as we need them to be to make new things happen. So I think we need to think about what sort of structure could do that for us, could develop shared services, could develop the kind of alliances and the mini center alliances, the family childcare networks, the infant toddler centers, all of the wonderful things that we dream about and talk about. Are we just going to think they're going to pop up by themselves if we throw money at them and they're going to stay in place? I don't think so. I think we need a strong leadership body somewhere at the state level that brings the various state departments together and then brings the private sector expertise into this mix. So that's what I would try to do. I think the very first thing I would do is I would convene a work group of you all out there and your private sector partners to do some serious talking about how to proceed.
And you know, Kay, we have some great blueprints already. I mean, when we look at the military childcare programs and what all they did to transform early education for military families, we even have Head Start and Early Head Start,
Right.
Where the regulations are already there that gears people towards high quality. So the pieces are there, pulling them all together and creating a system obviously is the challenge. And even with the American Rescue Plan, we know that we are going to get quite a bit of money and resources, but how long will those resources be available? Will they be continuous? You know, there are a lot of questions about that.
I have to tell you that one of the warnings I heard from a government official, her name is Katie Ham, and she's a deputy assistant, whatever, that oversees both Head Start and childcare at the federal level. And she was listing some of the challenges. And one of the challenges here, she said, is the concern that this is temporary. So she was really saying, move ahead. Don't hold back, because first of all, remember that the stabilization funds in the American Rescue Plan are good for 2 years, and the CCDF funds are good for 3 years. And you heard Bonnie Watson Coleman make the commitment, and many of our people in Congress have made that same commitment, that they're going to fight to keep these things in place. And there's more coming down the pike in the jobs program the president has just proposed and some other movements. So I think standing back and waiting to see what's going to happen next is not the way to proceed. I also want to tell you that you mentioned early Head Start, and I think that is our avenue to better infant toddler care. I think a state-funded early Head Start program with higher eligibility standards than the federal program is a way we have a model there to build on. And so I think that's how we need to go. I want to say one more thing about, you said what would be the one thing I would do. You know, the immediate thing I would do is I would send a check to every childcare worker that's been working during this pandemic and is continuing to work, a substantial check to every single person as a hazard payment for what they've done. And I would also set aside funds to pay a hiring bonus to any new person who comes into the field who has or is willing to get the appropriate training, because we've got a crisis out there, not just in compensation, but in no staff. As many of our colleagues from our direct service directors are pointing out, they're competing with Costco and Amazon at the same salary level, and we can't let this go on. So even though we don't have a master plan, we need a master plan for a statewide compensation scale that it gives all workers, all childcare workers, all early childhood workers parity with public school teachers. Until we have that in place, we need to find a way to just pump out some cash to these people that are taking care of our kids.
I think, well, I like that Plan K, and I think there are many other childcare providers that are on the line that would certainly appreciate that as well, because I know how difficult it is to find qualified staff right now. We have at least one center that I'm aware of that has 10 empty classrooms because she doesn't have staff.
Right.
So, but parents are calling every day. They want to put their children back into a childcare program. They need to go back to work. And so we know that without childcare, the economy will not flourish. And so we do have to think very quickly about what those responses are going to be and get the resources out there.
What would be the first thing you would do, Beverly, if you were in charge?
I think I would work on the workforce issue as well. One of the things that I have suggested is that when parents, I believe the unemployment will be running out in September, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty certain that parents are going to be out and about looking for work, and they're going to need childcare while they're looking for work. And so if there could be some initiative, maybe through Department of Labor or some other entity that would help those families with childcare costs, go through our R&R. We already have a system set up to do that, and get them back to work. And once they get back to work, well, of course, we need to help get the childcare centers ready, prepared to reopen if they haven't, and really see what we can salvage, because we do know that there are some centers that have closed and they will not be reopening.
Right.
Know that. But, you know, unfortunately, even for us, we will call a center and they'll say, well, yes, I'm open. And then the following week, we find out that they're actually closed. And one of the biggest issues, again, is business practices for our child care programs. This has been a test for certain in their ability to manage resources when they're very scarce and still keep their agencies afloat. So that's another area that we really need to look at as well.
I agree. And I think another thing that we need to do as a state, and I know the state has been working on this, but I think we have to now really make it happen, is a statewide data management system and make it available to every licensed childcare facility, show them how to use it so that they can manage their business practices better, much like the project that you're heading up and piloting in Essex about helping programs get on a data management system and market their services. But this would be a system that would not only assist the programs, but would also gather information for the state about enrollment and capacity in real time, and could be used to report everything from attendance, which we're not going to have attendance anymore. It's going to be by enrollment, but to report enrollment and to use the food program and to serve, and also for families to look for care and to apply for eligibility online. I just think that this is the kind of technology, we have some of this in the healthcare field. We have a lot of it in industry. We know somebody knows how to do these things. So I think this is something that we really need to move our field forward and to allow our government to have more transparency about what's going on. They don't have the information they need to operate most of the time. So yeah, I think that would be another first step. How many first steps do we get here?
Well, obviously we need more than one. Oh, okay. In the many years that we've known each other, I've seen you as serious, value-driven, ethical, honest, and analytic. How do you see yourself?
Well, those are all such great words. I'll go with those. All right, here, I wrote something down. I see myself as enthusiastic. I hope I'm somewhat creative. I'm dedicated. I'm fairly dependable. I'm optimistic. And I'll tell you a story that is probably not a good thing, but I used to work with someone. We didn't always get along, but we did get along, but we sometimes clashed on what to do next. And I described our difference this way: when I see a window of opportunity, I jump through it. And when she saw a window of opportunity, she thought of all the risks.
Ah.
So I think you hope for both of those things, but I tend to be on the jumping through it side, I admit. But yeah, I think optimism is an important quality to struggle to maintain in our world today. And I try to do that.
Yes, I would agree. I would be jumping with you, Kay. I'm a risk taker as well. Maybe not in everything, but certainly the opportunities that present themselves for early childhood, I'm going to try it. And it may not always work, but at least I can say, you know what, we gave this in our best shot, our best effort, and it's not perfect for Essex, but it might be perfect for a rural area or somewhere else, you know. So yeah, I'm definitely open to that.
And this is something that I've learned from my colleagues at the Nicholson Foundation and in other places too, but I wish I could say I was data driven, and I think that we all need to be. We all need to, A, be willing to try new things, but B, look at things where we have some evidence or some data that they're going to work. And also we need to measure what we're doing to see what the outcomes are, right?
Absolutely.
Did it work or did it not work?
Yeah.
And I don't think we do that often enough, but I do think that you do that in your work, Beverly, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. We were always trying to measure impact. What difference did we make as a result of this project, this investment, or this training? Was something realized as a result of the work that we did?
Right.
And you know, I think more people need to do that. And you're right, we don't have a good track record with the data, but I think things are changing. And I believe that as more folks want to progress in this field, and they have to demonstrate those things to get funding and support. So
Right. And I think about one of the projects that we worked on together. And I can't tell you what the huge impact of this project is, but I do think that the Shared Services Project is an interesting story because we had a statewide work group of very diverse people from different kinds of organizations who were interested in that topic that met. And it felt like one of those hopeless things when how many more meetings are we going to have before something happens, right? I think it went on for a couple of years. And then out of that grew the NJAEYC Shared Services website and your Shared Services Alliance. And now the state has funded shared services work, I believe, in 6 counties that you're overseeing. And I don't know what's developing in those counties, but I think that that concept and that idea is still a very important idea, because I don't think we can continue to sustain small individual center entities on their own. I think there needs to be linkage for them to continue to exist. And I think it can improve both the quality and the business practices of our whole sector. So I thought that was an interesting project, and that we don't know the outcome yet exactly, but I'm
Not
glad
yet.
that it's still there.
And Kay, you have to also realize that shared services is still not something that childcare community has totally embraced, because that means that you're sharing things where in previous years or prior to this concept being developed, you were competing. And so when you're in a competition mode, you tend to want to keep your information to yourself, not share when things are going good or bad, because you don't want folks to steal your ideas. So breaking down those walls of mistrust takes time.
Mhm.
And I think we've done a great job in Essex with that, but it took time. It took meetings. It took all kinds of activities to bring people together for the good of everyone that was at the table.
That's true. But if you think about it, pre-K and Head Start, for example, are 2 mega shared services operations. And they may not provide all the shared services that are needed, but they do offer, well, first they offer funding, right? So that's one big problem solved. But they also offer oversight, administrative services, information about enrollment and staff training and all kinds of things that a mom and pop center, we don't have too many of those left, but we have some out there serving maybe 30 kids, just can't have and needs to have. It's not that they need to go away. It's that they need linkages to others in order to continue to exist.
I absolutely agree. On the basis of your wonderful career, what are your 3 take-home messages about infants and children, what infants and children need to thrive? And let me just preface this question with, you've done a lot of work around infants and toddlers. I know that's an area of interest for you. You're part of the Pritzker Committee with ACNJ. And we've been talking about babies a long, long time. And I'm just giving that comment so that the audience understands that this is not something new. It's something that's been continuous over time. But what are your take-home messages about what infants and children need to thrive?
You know, I have to give you my personal take-home messages. I think the take-home messages about what they need in non-parental care really are the same, although we could talk a lot about staff training and classrooms and so on and so forth. But I really think the first thing that infants and toddlers need is a loving, nurturing, unconditionally loving person, adult, to care for them and love them. And respect them. I think that's the big answer. The second thing is I think they need consistency. And that doesn't mean that they need X at 8 o'clock and Y at 10 o'clock. Doesn't mean they need regiment. They just need consistency in their lives so that they know who's caring for them, where they're going to be cared for. That is very important. And I want to make a side comment about that because I, first of all, just read an article about the damage that changing work schedules has for young children. That parents who are expected to work from 8 to 5 one day and 11 to 7 the next day and 2 days this week and 1 day next week, that kind of schedule is very disruptive to children's lives. And I would hope that we can be more influential in the business world to help parents who have of young children not be given that kind of work schedule, because it's very bad for children. But there can be inconsistency in our childcare programs too, and staff turnover and poorly planned, whether we want to call them lesson plans or daily schedules. There are all kinds of ways that we can give children more security and confidence in their lives through consistency. And then the third thing is that I think, well, you know what I call it, and it's not an early childhood term, but I call it, what I wrote down something about this. Oh yeah, I call it exposure to the world. But I think infants and toddlers need exposure to words, to ideas, to shapes, to colors, to textures, to music, to art, to different kinds of people, to nature, to everything in the world, as much stimulation as possible. And you know what? I don't think you have to have all those things. If you have none of those things, you've probably read the studies about life in the kibbutzes, where it used to be no toys, no nothing. So if you don't have a wonderful environment and a facility and equipment and materials like we wish everybody had, I still think that you can introduce children to all those things through books and through storytelling. And whole cultures exist on storytelling. But I think you need to offer children as early as possible, even in the womb, exposure to all of the wonderful things about our world, because we know that their brains are developing like that. And every single thing you give them, they will absorb and use throughout their lives. So those are the three things.
Okay, thank you. And Kay, I want to add that also through their home experiences, sometimes families don't have all of those kinds of things, the toys and what have you, but they still have love. They still can do laundry. They can still, there's
Right.
so many practical things in our home that help children learn as well.
Exactly.
The other thing that you mentioned was the business sector. And, that's been one area that I'm very interested in tapping into. We don't have a business sector champion to really talk about early education in New Jersey on a general basis. I know there are several foundations that are really supporting the effort around pre-K, expanding pre-K and so forth, but there was a time in New Jersey many years ago when our larger corporations not only provided childcare, they were part of a network that focused on childcare, implementing high quality programs, investments in childcare. And we really don't see that anymore. And I've done some work myself. I know SEAL has in trying to do some outreach to the business community. And we've just not been able to bring them into the circle. So my question is, do you have any great ideas of how to bring the business sector into the circle?
Well, I think, we need to think about whenever I plan a project, even though I said I like to jump through the window, I try to think about what goals do we have in common, the people that are working on it and the people that we want to engage. So I think we need to think about what's the goal of business. Well, one of the goals of business that we know is profit. And in order to run a successful business, they have to have reliable employees. So I think if you look back at the study that ACNJ did a few years ago, or any of those studies, businesses may not say they're interested in starting a childcare center, and they may not be at all interested in helping childcare centers be better business people, but they're very interested in making sure that their employees have childcare so they can come to work. So I think we need to think about where to start with them, and to think about perhaps the childcare programs that a particular employer's employees are using as a possible target group for a specific employer. But what I haven't really thought, and I think it's really an interesting concept, Beverly, that we need some statewide champion about business practices. Of course, if we had that wonderful intermediary organization I was talking about, then we turn to them and ask them, who can help us and what do you think we ought to do here? It could be something like the Pandemic Rescue Fund. It's something that comes to the fore when we have a need and that has the right people on it to help us solve and discuss that need. But I do know that there are several, I shouldn't say several, but that some of my foundation colleagues are very interested in business practices. And there's been some discussion and some resources developed, including you, Beverly, have brought in business assistance for programs. So maybe there needs to be a quote unquote work group on business practices.
I think we're up to at least 3 work groups. Okay.
Yeah, right. And well, one of the things we can't do is have the same people in every work group, right? That's the problem that we have.
That's true. So I'm going to take a couple questions from our participants. This is from Evan Delgado. First off, the Terrell Fund is so proud to have the amazing Kay Hendon join our team. And here is his question. What can we, everyone on this webinar, do to support this vision for a stronger early childhood child care system? And what are the things we can do in our day-to-day practice, and how can we be even better advocates and champions? Wow, that's a huge question.
It is. And I just want to say that pretty soon I'm going to start calling him the amazing Evan Delgado if he doesn't stop that. So that's a pretty amazing question. And it also is indicative of the way Evan thinks and the way many of you think. But to think about the big picture and how can we do our job better is such an important question. And I think one of the ways that he might answer that, certainly isn't the answer, but he might answer that through partnerships. He's given me many pointers. Well, I shouldn't say pointers exactly, but in asking him, how do you do your work? That is one of the answers that I get, that he digs in very deep with the partners that are there doing the work in the community and thinks about the multiple partners that are impacted by that. And I think that I don't think this is the only answer to your question, Evan, but I do think that thinking about partnerships in the other sectors, many of which are represented here, but many which are not. So thinking about partnerships with the education sector, which we already have, but with the health sector, we heard about a wonderful set of maternal and child health prenatal projects the other day. Mm-hmm. When we think about infant and toddler care, we need to be thinking about that sector and engaging them in the work. And they have many of the same concerns we do, and they are there to help us do advocacy. So I think broadening our circle of partners and actors is one of the things that we really need to do better. Beverly, what do you think is the answer to his question?
I would agree with that. Partnerships and collaborations, you can't do this work alone. And in listening to the presentations the other day, it was interesting that childcare was linked to Medicaid and healthcare and all the other aspects that they're trying to develop. And it's like a supportive services village, if you will. Reminds me of Vital Village that is in Boston, where they have all of those resources available to parents when they come in for healthcare. They direct them, do you have childcare? Do you have this? Here's this, that, and the other. And there are people there to help them navigate the process. Mm-hmm. Because it's one thing to have those resources. It's another thing if you are already distressed in some way to do it on your own. But if you have a navigator or someone to show you the way and hold your hand, absolutely, I think that's something that needs to be considered. And given us I was going to say coming out of the pandemic, that's my hope that we are moving out of the pandemic, but everyone's been traumatized in this process and in this situation. And so it's one thing to go to the doctor, it's another thing now to feel comfortable to do some additional follow-up. So,
And- Yeah, I think the idea of the one-stop bringing everybody together at that level is one way to build a stronger, multifaceted system, and a site where you have not only where parents can get the answers and help with any issue, but where you actually have workers from multiple sectors housed at the same site. So you don't come to Programs for Parents for childcare eligibility. You come to this site for childcare eligibility, for Medicaid eligibility, for WIC eligibility, for whatever else you might need. And there are workers there from those sectors to help you. I also want to point out that our leading childcare advocacy, our only childcare advocacy organization in the state, ACNJ, practices a bit of what we're preaching right now. I'm thinking about the family leave legislation, which I didn't mention in my earlier comments about the state of New Jersey, but New Jersey is one of 3 or 4 states that's had a family leave policy. And I think we're now getting that from the federal government. But ACNJ wasn't the lead organization on family leave, but worked closely with the organization that was promoting those changes. And that's a good example of advocacy working together, so that we're not going to the governor and the legislature, with what seem like competing priorities, but we're going there together, or at least in concert with all the other groups that affect children and families, to support each other.
well, Kay, you'd be surprised. Our time is up.
Really? Well, when are we gonna do this again, Beverly?
I know this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed speaking with you. And I think that our audience enjoyed listening as well. We'll say to be continued, Kay.
All right, and I really want to hear what the audience has to say, and I don't know if we're going to get to do that, but please let me know if you've got anything to say, audience out there.
Thank you so much, Kay. I
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you, Beverly. This was fun.
So just for our audience, we will be taking a 5-minute break. There will be a timer that will be put on your screen. Please come back exactly in 5 minutes, so that we can get started with our panel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm seeing all the comments, Kay. Great conversation. Thank you, Kay. Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. And please come back, because we are going to also acknowledge our 2 individuals that are retiring this year, and I definitely want to give them their kudos for all the work they've done in our community. Thank you again.
Thank you, Beverly.
Okay. Can you turn your cameras on, panel? Oh, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Catherine, can we have our pictures of the honorees? Well, 5 minutes went by very quickly, I must admit. You know, Ray Ocasio and Dale Goodwin announced their retirement earlier this year. And I just could not let this program not capture something about the two of them. They've been great champions for childcare in the Newark community. And I thought it would be befitting for us to pay tribute to them today. So first, I'm going to start with Ray. In 1998, Ray Ocasio began his work at La Casa de Don Pedro. And since then, the agency has experienced tremendous growth, particularly in the field of early education. I met Ray just around the same time as the Abbott preschool program was rolling out. He and the Newark contingency, used to call them the Big Five, arrived in Trenton to plead their case for more funding for childcare, led by the late Joe Thomas Burger. And the result of that negotiations was very successful. And I think at that point, we turned the corner on how, and I was at the state level at that time, how we would look at funding public pre-K. What I've learned about Ray over the years is that he is a master negotiator, a visionary, a community builder, and definitely an advocate for children. Ray, you have definitely left your mark at La Casa and in Newark, and there are thousands of children and families that have benefited from your service. Congratulations, Ray. I wish we could have done this in person, but I owe you one. Thank you for being an early childhood champion. I might add that we have a few things in common. Ray and I are both National Urban Fellows through Baruch College. And so our leadership training comes from the same place. But Ray, congratulations to you. We were able to deliver a small gift to Ray yesterday at his home. So hopefully you will enjoy that and remember us here in Newark and come back to visit often. Our second honoree this morning is Dale Goodwin. Dale is the Director of Education at Unified Vailsburg. And I really was racking my brain last night, Dale, to remember what program you were working at prior to going to UVSO. But Dale has been the Director of Children's Services at UVSO for over 25 years. And I remember very clearly when Mike Frawley wanted to convert the old funeral home to a child care center. And I think you had just come on board after that. And there was a lot of controversy about it, but he moved ahead. And that was the beginning of the UVSO early childhood empire. Over the next 20 years, UVSO would renovate and build 4 additional state-of-the-art facilities for children birth to 3. Dale was a key partner in helping to create the vision and seeing it to fruition. Because of Dale and her commitment to high-quality early education, thousands of families and children have benefited. I join our colleagues today in congratulating Dale on a job well done, and I know that you are looking forward to retirement. Wishing you peace and blessings and so much more in this new phase of your life. And so Dale and Ray, job well done. You know, we'll be calling you to pick your brains occasionally, so please answer your phone. You will be missed. You have definitely been leaders in the field, both on the educational side and on the business side, Ray. And just thank you so much for the work you've done. And hopefully, Dale, you received your gift this morning. And we just want to wish you both many, many blessings for the future and all the things that you will do from this point forward. God bless you. And yes, round of applause to both of you. And the congratulations are coming in now. And I'll read a few of them from Grace. Congratulations, Dale and Ray. Congratulations, Ray and Dale. Talk about how to develop wonderful facilities. You know how. Yes, you guys were trailblazers in the construction of new facilities. Absolutely. So we're going to move forward at this point. Elise Rawls says, congratulations to the dynamic duo. Yes, yes. Congratulations, Dale and Ray. Regina Adesanya, well done. Enjoy retirement. While it's different, you will have much to do. Godspeed. So I'm going to ask our panelists if they will join us now. Cameras on and mics on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is a treat. I get to sit with all the important people today. I want to first introduce Dr. Gerald Fitzhugh, who was in Newark for a while and now heads the Orange Public School District. Thank you, Dr. Fitzhugh, for joining us. We have Naomi Donnell, and I talked earlier about parents have to be at the table. I believe that with all my heart. And I'm so glad that Ms. Donnell is here. She is our parent chair of the Essex County Council for Young Children of the Education Committee. My colleague here in Newark, Ms. Samantha Lott Velez, Executive Director of Early Childhood. Yes, yes. Dr. Jerry Costa from Montclair State University. Thank you all for joining us. And, you know, there's been so many questions going on about this whole transitioning thing. But before we even get to talk about transitioning, I want to say, how does it feel to be a champion for children? What, you know, when somebody acknowledges you, you're a champion. What does that mean for you? And I'm going to ask each of you to share your thoughts on that. You want to start, Dr. Fitzhugh?
I can. And good morning to the panelists. Good morning to the community that are watching us via Zoom this morning. I have to share that the work that we do is in concert with Everything for Children. And so what is most important is when we create strategic plans and we have the, within our ecosystem, we have the children in the center, we know that that's why we're doing what we do every day. And what's most important is we recognize our youngest learners, right? And so our early childhood students, our youngest learners, we're trying to develop them holistically. And so that's where, you know, as a superintendent and as a father, that's where I am as a leader and as a parent.
Okay, Ms. Donnell, champion for children.
Yes, good morning. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Good morning to everyone that's out there in Zoom. As a champion, as a mom, that's my first job. I have 3 small children and I represent them to my fullest being. For the past 14 years, I was also an early childhood educator in Newark. And so children are number one to me. I am a parent advocate. I am a champion. I am all of the above. And I'm just so elated to be here. So it means so much to me for being here today. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Samantha.
Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you, Dr. Lynn, for having me here today. And just good morning to everyone that is tuning in. To be a champion, first of all, it's an honor to be called a champion. Every day when I wake up and get ready to come to work, for me, this work is really about doing what's best for children and advocating on their behalf, advocating on behalf of their parents, because I have the opportunity to open the doors for them to be able to have the resources that they need and to be able to sit at the table with people that can provide those resources. And our parents are out there, they're working, providing for their families, and they need someone to support them and to speak on behalf of their children. And our children need someone to support them. And so in the school system, it is our duty to do so. And so to be a champion is to make sure that if there's something out there for young children, for all children, that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that they have access to it. And access is extremely important, providing access to families and then letting them know how they can actually gain it, you know, and take advantage of the opportunity. So that's my role, that's my job. And being a parent myself, I understand personally how important that is to be able to have someone being a champion for me and advocating for me as I go out every day and do the work that I do. So thank you for that title. It feels good to be able to say that.
And Dr. Costa?
Thank you so much, Beverly, a champion for children, and Kay, for that wonderful conversation. It's such a lofty thought to be considered a champion for children. And I think for me, it's best expressed in what has become for me the passion in my life, which is to remind people that when we say children, we say infants and children, that there is something very special about maternal health, pregnancy, childbirth, and birth to 3. And I think if I in any way deserve a little bit of a champion, maybe I won't say champion, just the first syllable, I'll say champion. If I get some of it, it's because I hope that I have really advocated for keeping babies in mind, keeping the differences between older children and infancy and early childhood, the power of relationships. I love, Kay, I love what you said about what's the most important. It's having people in the lives of infants and children who respect them, who honor them, who listen to them, who pay attention to their voice, their facial expressions, the way they interact, the way their posture with children, infants, honoring them. So Bruno Bettelheim, a wonderful psychiatrist, said every child needs someone who's madly in love with them. And I think that that's really true for infants especially. So thank you so much, Beverly. I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. So I'm going to get us started off. What is your greatest challenge or concern that you have about transitioning young children back to school? And anyone can start off.
You know, Beverly, Ms. Beverly, I'd just like to share that on April 19th, the Orange Public Schools are going back to hybrid learning. This week, our staff is in classrooms working diligently to provide centers of interest and social distancing and safety measures for all the children that return. My biggest fear always is ensuring that, you know, folks are not infected as they come back into our buildings, right? And so just creating safety protocols to ensure that everyone's going to be safe. I went to our Orange Early Childhood Center yesterday, and every single cubby was differentiated for our children. They had their own materials in their baggies. You see the same thing at Scholars Academy. We're doing the same thing at John Robert Lewis Early Childhood Center, because we know our children, our early educators, they need to be able to feel their materials, right? And so because we know that, we wanted to create a paradigm where they had the opportunity to do as such. But again, my biggest fear is always to ensure the health and safety of all concerned.
Okay. Mr. Nell?
Last last week I had the opportunity to meet with some parents and ask a couple of questions. And one of the things we talked about was, what are their greatest challenges for their children transitioning back to school? And I can honestly say the biggest thing that the parents and I both talked about was communications from the school, as far as knowing what to expect, right? What are the classrooms going to look like? What are the classrooms going to feel like? As Dr. Fitz, you just mentioned, as far as the materials, will they be separated? What the cubbies are going to look like, the cots, what is the bathroom procedure? And so parents really just want to know what to expect, what the daily schedule is going to look like from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. What is drop off procedure going to look like? What is the pickup procedure going to look like? Will students go on field trips anymore? So communication is one of the greatest challenges. They want to know exactly what things are going to look like. And so I would say that is the biggest challenge for parents and myself as well. Just kind of like the unknown, because we've been out of school for over a year. So we're stepping into something new now with this new, going back to school, transitioning from remote back into the building.
Oh, Beverly, you're
on mute, Dr. Lynn.
Dr. Fitz, you also put in our chat communication and transparency. So I just want to throw that comment out there. Jerry, what are your thoughts?
By the way, I want to correct. I said Bruno Bettelheim. It was Yuri Brafenbrenner. I got them confused about the quote, Yuri Brafenbrenner. There are three things quickly that come to my mind, Beverly. One is, I think that the most important thing we are learning is that if we really have to first attend to the socio-emotional needs of the young students, the young children, the students, but also the socio and emotional needs of the staff. During this time, many people suffered great losses in their lives, and children need to find a way to tell their story, to be there first as infants and young children who are listened to and honored. And, we have to first attend to the developmental and emotional needs before we focus on learning. Learning is critical, but we have to first talk about the underlying experience. I think the second thing that comes to my mind is, and this is a real tough issue, is the posture that I think many people have been feeling, teachers and parents alike. Their children have fallen behind. The children are somehow needing to catch up. And I've been trying to use the analogy that if for some reason you couldn't eat for 7 days, on day 8, you wouldn't eat all the meals you missed for the first 7, right? It's not really about trying to pile in more overlearning. It's really taking children where they are. I've attached 3 documents, by the way, in the chat area for anyone to use. But the first document is this wonderful imaginary letter that's written by a teacher to say, listen, I'm a teacher. My superpower is really to help children where they are. You need to help your children and you feel safe and feel calm and address the worries you have. I'll help you there too, but that's our goal. So the second concern is not to focus on the notion of catching up. Children are where they are, and we will help them where they are. And I think the third thing, just to sort of repeat, because I think it's so important, is mental health has certainly become the top of our minds. COVID, if nothing else, all of the lessons we have learned in a way that we would never have chosen to learn, the disparities that have occurred, the tragedies that have occurred, the unfairness and inequity, the systemic disparities that existed for decades, for centuries. The most important thing is address the mental health needs. And I think remembering the mental health needs of the families, of the staff, as well as the families. The staff, the teachers need our support as well.
Excuse me, Dr. Costa, I'm sorry to interrupt. I see that it doesn't look like you attached the articles to the chat box. Would you be able to resend that to all panelists and attendees, please?
Oh, so I wonder if, you know what I might have done, Catherine, and sent it just to you. I will, folks. I'll resend that. Thank you.
Okay. Samantha, you want to weigh in?
Sure, absolutely. And I just want to, just echo everything that my colleagues here have shared. Some of the same challenges and thinking have taken place. I also want to add to that, just building trust with our families so that they feel that their children are safe entering our buildings. When working with little ones, they don't articulate or haven't yet learned to articulate the way that some of the older children will be able to articulate their feelings, or even if they're not feeling well, And so parents are concerned about their children returning in school and just protecting them, right? I mean, it's that instinct as a parent to protect your child. But I have to say that our superintendent has been extremely transparent with sharing and communicating with all stakeholders. He's held councils with teachers. He has a council of parents. He has a council of students, in which he has been consistently sharing information regarding school opening. Principals have been tasked with sharing information directly with the parents at their locations. We've been utilizing our websites, social media, just to ensure that parents know what's going on, right? And there's always someone that they can call. And that's extremely important, because I know even as a parent, before I send my child back to school, I want to make sure that they're not going to go to school and that the school is going to somehow get them sick. So I want to know everything that's happening, especially if I can't walk in the building myself, right? I need to know what's going on. I can't even step in the classroom like I used to be able to. So building trust with parents is extremely important. And that is not something that you can just do, like you could just snap your fingers and it's done. It's an ongoing relationship that has to take place, and it has to be a two-way conversation, and everyone's feelings needs to be considered, right? And so in addition to the parents, you also, and just to echo Dr. Costa, the staff, the staff have to feel safe. And the reason why staff have to feel safe is because they're usually the ones communicating with parents. So we can't tell staff members to communicate with parents to make them feel safe if the person that's relaying a message doesn't feel safe. And so it's extremely important that we're consistently communicating with all of the stakeholders and just letting everyone know what's going on. And I think our superintendent has been spot on with that. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
So Jerry, I just want to go back to you for a moment. You talked about the attachments you were going to put in the chat, but what should parents be saying? What should they be saying to their children?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did put the attachments finally. I had sent them privately to Catherine. Well, I think, there's a wonderful guidance that comes from a lot of our work with trauma, which is that children need a chance to tell their story. Children need a chance to really talk in language that they understand about how they feel. And for young children, by the way, that sometimes helps. It helps sometimes when we as the adults, when we as the parents, ask the children not only how they feel in terms of their emotional or mental life, but how their bodies feel. Tell me how your tummy feels. How does your head feel? How do your legs feel? Talk about their body states, because, by the way, we forget this as adults. So much of our emotional life is tied to our body states. When we are afraid, we feel something in our stomach or in our neck or in our chest, and we feel sometimes a little fatigue in our bodies. So I think the first thing is find a way to help children tell a story. Listen to their story. Don't replace their story with yours. Listen to theirs and mirror it back to them. I think parents need to know. I think the second thing is, I hope that parents can help themselves feel safe and calm. And I think that may mean that parents need to, as my old supervisor used to say, Beverly, get in cahoots with ourselves to really pay attention to ourselves. When we are worried, when we are anxious, it comes through to our children in our voices, in our facial expressions, in our postures. Beverly, as you probably know, we've spent so much of our careers together, and I'm so honored by that. But we've spent a lot of time reminding ourselves that what's most important to children are the nonverbals. You know, the faces you make, the voices you use. Before you say a word, children are gauging, do they feel safe with you? And so I would say to parents, try to take care of yourselves. And that may mean you have to recruit someone, a good friend, a colleague, anyone who can help you feel calmer. But I think the third thing is helping the parents to say to the children, we're going to be okay. You're going to go back to school. You're going to see your friends again. If you feel worried, you tell mommy or tell daddy. But we're going to be okay, giving them a sense of hope and optimism, because the truth is, I think we are. I think we are. This is not deceptive. This is the messaging of when bad things happen, we are adaptive. We are getting through it. We will learn from this. So I hope those messages are core messages for parents.
Ms. Donnell, would you like to comment on that?
I actually had a conversation with my 10-year-old yesterday about attending summer camp, and he was not excited about going. He has gotten used to being home and kind of staying in.
Yeah.
And I had to do what Dr. Costa said. I had to reassure him that things are going to get better, and that, you know, mommy is doing her best. I'm going to go back to work. Like, we're going to try to get back to way that things used to be, slowly but surely and safely. And so I feel, as a parent, and I think I could speak on behalf of other parents, again, like Dr. Costa said, we have to model for them, right? We have to show them and let them know that everything is going to be all right, and that mommy is here for you, and that our family and friends are here for us as well. I wanted to also bring up a text that I've been reading to my 4-year-old who's in preschool. It's called Why in the World? A children's book about the coronavirus pandemic by Vijaya Bodhak. I feel that reading and textbook texts help children a lot understand what's going on. And so reading this text and talking through about the pandemic and allowing him to draw pictures has helped them understand just a little bit more. When school shut down last year, he went into a shock. I'm not going to see my teachers anymore. What is going on? It was all over the news. I had to turn the TV off. It just became so engrossed in my house as like this really bad thing, and that we're stuck at home. And so this text has helped me help him understand more about the coronavirus. And I would encourage parents to use text, use books. This was like a little cheap book for $2.99 on a Nook through Barnes and Noble, to read to your children, to talk through this pandemic and understand, because 3 and 4-year-olds, they're still learning and developing. And so he was like, what is this? Like, what is a coronavirus? And I think this text really helped me to help him understand what it is.
And our children are looking towards us for confirmation, for just explaining things. So that sounds great. Samantha, you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Just, the same thing that Naomi just shared, being honest and transparent with our children from the very beginning, and just letting them know what's going on. Young children are very risky. And so if there's any anxiety, more than likely it's coming from us as the parents. So sometimes we put some of that on our children and we don't even realize it. But our children, we just need to talk to them about exactly what's occurring, so that when they see things happening differently in the world, they know why, right? And just to talk to them about being safe, right? In preschool, we consistently talk to children about hand washing. They wash their hands all the time. And so that's part of their normal protocol in the school building. But now it's really about not just doing that in school, but doing it at home,
Right.
doing it after you get in the car, doing it after you come from the supermarket, being careful, the social distancing. And so parents being aware of what's going to happen when their children enter school is extremely important. So get to know what your school district is doing, right, in preparation for the pandemic. I'm sure all school districts are sharing that information in some sort of way for families to reach it. And so find out what's going on, and then talk to your child about it prior to them entering school. Before we get to the building, this is going to happen when we get there, and this is what you're going to see, all right? And maybe even practicing at home, making it a fun routine, and showing them the signs and how they will look for the signs, and how by looking for the signs in the pictures, they're actually reading, so they're going to look for the signs and they're going to follow those signs. And I know in our district, we have an ingress procedure where there's a 4-step protocol. And so I'm sure all districts have some sort of procedure. So teaching your child about those steps and why they exist, not just saying this is what you're gonna do, but children, their favorite question is why? Why? So everything that we tell them, we have to tell them why they're doing it. And believe me, they will remind us that we need to do things. When we get in the car, my 2-year-old granddaughter, she'll say, wash hands, Mima, wash hands, because we always used to sanitize them when we come from the store. So just being extremely transparent with our children and making them feel safe. There are so many adults out there that love them and care for them, and they can't wait to see them. And so we want them to know that they're going to be safe in the school's care as well as in their homes. And so helping them to understand that is extremely important.
Beverly, could I add something to that?
Sure.
This is a lesson I think I learned in a powerful way after 9/11 occurred. I remember meeting with families of young children, and I remember one conversation where a mother said, well, my child asked me if I was going to be home tonight from work, and I don't want to lie to my child. I want to say to him, well, I really don't know, what will happen. I don't know. And I said in my response, uncertainty is the province of adulthood. Is the province of adulthood. We adults have to live with the uncertain world. Children must be certain you will be there for them, you will love them, you will care for them, they are safe. And by the way, imagine living every day as a child thinking every time mommy left, something bad would happen, right? In the exceedingly rare moment where something might happen to a parent, what we hope happens is all the other adults in that child's life rally around that child to help that child know this loss was horrible and they'll be with them. But so I think this is just based on what Samantha, you said. I think children need to feel safe, and you are doing everything. Mr. Rogers had this wonderful reminder from his grandmother. He said that whenever something unfortunate happened, and he talked about this around 9/11, he said, my grandmother would say, look for the helpers. On the screen where all the horrible things were being shown over and over, he would point to the ambulance people, the police officers, the firefighters, the helpers. Look for the helpers. So I think that's the message children need for this. It's not minimizing the fear. They're going to tell us their story and we have to listen to that. But I think they need, Samantha, I think what you said to your grandchild is just absolutely the thing.
Dr. Lynn, if I could just kind of put it into a nice box.
Sure.
Schools are our children's second homes. So in terms of creating a modeling practice from our parent partners to our teacher partners and our paraprofessionals, again, showing exactly the washing of the hands and singing of the songs, etc., is powerful. Last evening, I hosted a superintendent's town hall meeting, and even though we were on Zoom, I wanted to practice, or rather model the practice of having my mask on, though my director of mathematics was 6 feet apart nearer my door. Because again, we wanted to make sure that when we're going to have conversations about health and safety, that folks see that the superintendent's doing it, the director of math is doing it, the security guard is doing it, food service is doing it, right? And finally, just having those real conversations. Children are resilient. And so we cannot take that away from them. But again, giving them the tools and supports. So if they're going through some type of loss, because we have to identify that not every child, but there's been children who have gone through tremendous loss. So coming back into our school buildings, we have to make sure we have those parameters in place to provide supports to our youngest learners, as well as our oldest learners in grade 12.
Amen. Amen, Dr. Fitzer.
So let me just share this. The children haven't sat at a student desk in a year. They've been running around the house. They've been eating potato chips while the teacher's online. It's not been school, really. It's been a different kind of school. So now you want them to come back to the school and you want them to sit at the desk. What is required to make that happen?
Well, I guess I can chime in here. Well, number one is modeling. Dr. Fish, you just talked about it. Modeling, not just for adults, but also for young children. And even though they have been in the home setting, and I'm laughing as you were sharing it, Dr. Lynn, because I think about my own son as he's in class. Sometimes he has the camera off and he's being handed breakfast at the desk, like that's not going to happen during, during the school day, but I think as children come in, classroom teachers are really prepared to transition them into learning how to sit at the table. It's almost like the first day of school. It really is,
Correct.
It's the first day of being in the school building, right? So it may not be the first day of learning, but it's the first day of being in the school building. So all of those things that we would do normally the first day of school, we would do during this time period. And that's teaching children and modeling for children how to do things. And the best part of learning is doing, right? And so when we get children involved in the process, they'll become more acclimated to it. So modeling for them is extremely important. And again, that practice. So if parents know what to do, they'll practice it at home and prepare their children for it. So teachers' communication with parents, sending them letters and just pretty much saying to them, hey, this is what's going to happen the first week. This is what's going to happen the second week. So that parents are aware, and even saying to the parent, here's how you can help us. So I know there's been a lot of transition conversations happening with families, but even if they can't make it to the WebEx meeting or to the online meeting, sending them a letter so that they'll know what's going on, or having some sort of video that they can tap into to kind of get an idea of what the classroom looks like, right? Because again,
Absolutely.
a lot of parents want to know what is my child's classroom going to look like? They're used to walking in children's classroom. They can't do that anymore. So showing them some sort of video and explaining to them what's going on, because we need our parents. They're our partners in this work. And so with all of the adults working together to kind of support the babies, they'll get it. They'll get it.
Samantha, I think this is so wonderful. I want to, you rock. I want to spend time with you in this work because it's so wonderful what you're saying. Barry Brazelton, Dr. T. Barry Brazelton, this wonderful pediatrician and child developmental specialist, would say, why is it that some children can't learn while standing up? After a time of being home and being away from the group, I think children need what we call in our work as developmental psychologists, muscularity. They need the movement of their body. Years ago, I think we knew this. We had more physical education. We had more outside activities. There's actually, as those who know in early childhood, actually what are called farm-based curricula, which are sort of based on digging holes and moving rocks and picking up logs. There's something about the body. So the one thing I would want to say to teachers and parents, have a conversation about, maybe this is a period of time in transitioning back where children need more movement. Deep pressure and vestibular movement are calming for many children. Now, I know teachers are worried that this can get out of control. And so it has to be done in a more organized way. It could be anything like, having a pretend parade around the classroom and sort of, marching slowly to practice how to be slow. But so I think the one thing is think about maybe in the transition, not requiring immediately sedentary activities. Children may need more of that muscularity and that movement. And by the way, I put my email in the spot. I understand that all of the 5 attachments I listed, Beverly, aren't showing for people.
Okay.
So if you want anything from me, I hope you can see my email. Send me an email and I'll send you, I had 5 attachments, including, Samantha, 2 comic books for children about COVID, so parents could read to them.
Oh, that's great.
Cyrus the Virus is one of them.
Right.
So Jerry, if you email those to me and Kendra,
Oh,
then
great,
we can
great,
make
great.
Sure that they are distributed to all the.
Thank you so much,
all
Beverly.
the
Thank you.
participants. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Did anyone else want to chime in on that conversation about movement? My granddaughter's 5, and I had the opportunity to sit in with her on her kindergarten class. Now, of course, she's never been to the school, so when she goes to school, it's going to be a little eye opener. But every, let's say 20 minutes, they would stop what they were doing and they would play some kind of little game with music, and they stand up, sit down, or whatever it was. And it was wonderful because it kept them engaged.
Mhm.
And to me, it's similar to this whole movement while they're in the classroom. I think, you know, it's a little distracting probably in the classroom, but you get them right back engaged in the work that they need to be doing. So I thought that was very similar.
I wanted to share one point for my 4-year-old. He was in school, then he stopped, so he's been home. And it's been very hard trying to work and manage all of my children at home during this pandemic. I know at school you have more of a routine and children learn through repetition, as Samantha said, you know, modeling for them. But as much as I've tried to show him and do things over and over again, it's like I feel because I'm mommy, he just like sometimes don't listen to me. But when he's on a computer and he's in front of his teacher and he tells his teacher, oh, Ms. Jenkins, may I use the restroom or bathroom? And she says yes. And she's like, well, make sure you wash your hands. He's like, yeah, he starts singing a song with her and doing all this with her. And I'm looking like, wait a minute. You know, I've been trying all this time and he just gives me, I feel like, so much of a hard time, but with his teacher. So I'm really excited and looking forward to him going back to school, getting into routine, doing things repetition. Children learn through repetition, doing it over and over again. But again, being home with me, he just got so relaxed and, like you said, eating this and doing whatever, that I want him to have more structure. And a lot of parents that I talk to, they need that structure, that routine. So we're looking forward to safely sending back our kids to school, and they just behave so differently with their teacher than me.
We have to be reminded, though, that the first day or the first or second day of school is not going to be the academic piece. And I'm a pedagogue. I love curriculum instruction. And so teachers are planning for that social emotional piece, the whole socialization piece. I think that's most critical because the children haven't been in school over 365 days. And so we have to show them what school is and what it looks like. As one of the nurses at Orange Early Childhood Center stated yesterday, Mr. Falco, she said, we're back in September. So we have to remember to kind of create a mindset where we can't get upset, right? And we just have to model the practice that we want our babies to be able to do with fidelity. And so I think the most important piece as parents and educators, we know that the first 2 days of school is reacclimation, and probably even more than that, right? Because we have to make sure that children are doing what they need to do to be successful. And so I think that's probably the most critical thing as we kind of walk away from the discussion. And then finally, the brain breaks are critical in our schedules here in Orange Township. We created the brain breaks pre-kindergarten all the way through grade 7. And we did it and we saw it being successful because we knew that continuous, right? That continuous work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12:30, 1 o'clock, you're gonna get some of the turning the camera off or the disengagement. So we found that having the brain breaks allowed for the dancing or the get the wiggles out, so on and so forth. And so when I visited the classrooms, I was doing the wiggles and getting the stuff out because after being zoomed out for 365 days, I needed it as well as an adult. So I think what we've implemented holistically in Orange, in Newark, East Orange, et cetera, Irvington, we're all doing sort of similar things, which we're trying to ensure that we're engaging children, but at the same time, ensuring that the social emotional supports are there and I guess igniting the socialization piece in a Zoom kind of format.
And I just wanted to piggyback off of that, you know, because one of the important things in us as adults understanding is that children understand the habits of their environment. So as I listen to Miss Naomi talk about how her child is acting at home, like he's home, you know, like his habits at home are different from his school environment. So he's used to being able to be relaxed and to do whatever he wants to do at home. That was his time to really have like hours of brain breaks, right? And now we're saying, hey, the home environment is now a different environment. And so just like when we take a child to a museum or we take them to a grocery store or to the zoo, no, whatever environment we're putting them in, there's a norm and there's a way to act in that environment. And so what's so amazing about your child, Naomi, is that he is already learning how to react with his teacher. You know, like, and at the end, and you should be proud of that, right? Like
I
at the end of
am.
the day, he knows that with my teacher, I need to ask for permission. And if she gives me permission, I need to go handle and do what she tells me to do and report back and stay focused. So that's really, really great. And it really shows what you've taught him at home. And so to all of the parents out there, understanding that your child is going to have to adjust, that's normal. It's, we as adults, we adjust as we move and go to different places. So it's going to be very normal for them to have to adjust. And for the teachers out there, understanding that transition, right? That children are not just adjusting to the normal school environment, they're adjusting to a different type of school environment now, right? And so how are we as educators in the classroom preparing ourselves to help them understand the new normal environment, right, during this pandemic? And so it's extremely important that we are preparing for that we are preparing for it, not just on our level, but also on the level of a child. And so Dr. Costa has shared that he's going to provide some resources that we can use to kind of bring it to their level. And also Ms. Naomi also shared some book ideas that we need to utilize. But we need to find a way to make this very animated for children so that they understand what's happening and why it's happening, and then they will respond appropriately.
And last, the word of the day should be patience.
Yes.
Patience. Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Beverly, can I say, Dr. Fitzhugh
Sure.
and people are calling me Dr. Costa, Jerry and Samantha. I'm Jerry. I actually think that, as I was listening to both of you and Naomi, what you shared, I think for teachers, their attitudes, their beliefs are going to be really important to address, because I think many teachers are themselves feeling anxious about how will I do this all, So there are two things I want to say, and there are quotes that, over almost being 70, I've collected all these wonderful quotes, right? And so one of them that I love about education is not filling a bucket, it's lighting a fire, right? So the idea that we're going to catch up is not the best metaphor, because it sounds like they've missed so much. I think, get it. They've missed opportunities. They've missed these moments. But as I said earlier, children are where they are. The superpower of teachers is we help them from where they are. But if you were to approach it as if, let's redo all the stuff we have missed, I think children and you and parents will feel pressure. I think the second thing is, this is really an important thing that Einstein, this is one of the quotes he really said, by the way. So many people quote Einstein with things he might not have said. If you want your children to be smart, have them play. If you want them to be smarter, play more. And so for young children, we are forgetting that it is critical for them to really engage in reciprocity, mutuality, symbol formation, muscularity, picking things up, sharing things, doing things, moving around. So I'm hoping for the early childhood folk especially, but through education, we don't lose sight because the pressure is on, and I feel the pressure from the media and the social media is so much like, how are we going to get our kids to be back on track? I get that idea, but it really is not to be burdening children by this pressure. They are where they are the best teachers that we know are the ones who get to know a child, have the child feel understood, and lead them forward. So by the way, I love all the things, Dr. Fitzhugh and the others. Thank you so much.
Any last comments? I'll tell you, 45 minutes have gone by very, very quickly. It's 20 after 10. I'm going to ask the audience if they like to ask a question to please put it in the Q&A. But while they're doing that, any additional comments from any of you? Was this conversation helpful even?
I'm going to tell you that when March 17th, or probably before, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks before that, when we learned as superintendents that this coronavirus was coming to the United States and how we would have to create a plan for a 2-week period where we would not be in school buildings, We went from an asynchronous approach where we would just upload student work to where we've actually had school at home, where we created our partners, our parents, who became the principals, who became the teacher, the paraprofessional, the social worker, guidance counselor, right? And so it really strengthened partnerships to today where we're able to bring children back into brick and mortar in a safe fashion. And again, I have to just reiterate, it's about the patience, right? So we all have become frustrated during these last 365 days, whether it be as a parent, as a administrator, a teacher, etc. But we have to always remember that the patience of it all is most critical. Because again, if we get frustrated, it's not going to change anything. So we know it's not going to change anything, right? So in essence, why don't we just work together to make this new normal work better in totality?
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Dr. Fisher said. You know, patience is extremely key, and in addition to that patience, just collaboration is just as important. You know, I just want to say thank you to the community, to everybody that's attending here today, to Essex County, to all of New Jersey, to all of the parents, the community people, the educators, everybody that's been involved in this work and just involved in the community as a whole during this time period. Thank you, because this has been definitely challenging time for us, but we've made it through. You know, we've had families that have experienced hardships, and as a community, we've all stepped up to the plate and we've been there. We've all, from every level of this work, we've all learned so much, and we've learned it together. And we're going to continue to learn, and we're going to continue to learn together, and we're going to continue to work together. So, I mean, I know that, you know, as the days go on, and some school districts are open, like our school district right now is open for in-person learning, and I know other school districts are getting ready to reopen. You know, just keep your heads up, and do know that we have this. You know, we got this. You know, we're gonna do what we have to do. We're gonna welcome our babies back, and we're gonna make sure that they're safe, and we're gonna make sure that we're safe, because we got this. You know, and so I just tell everybody out there, like, stay strong, you know, and just stay connected to people. Stay connected to people, and make sure that you communicate with people. Tell them that you love them. Tell your children you love them every day. If you're a parent, tell your babies you love them every day, you know, and just let people know that there's someone out there that cares about them, and find that person that cares about you. Because in the midst of all of this, we could talk about policies, procedures, all type of things, but what's extremely important during a pandemic is the community coming together and working together to keep everyone safe. And I think as a community, we've been doing an extraordinary job, from the state to the county level, to the city, to school districts, to homes. We've all been doing the best we can. And I just want to say that I'm proud of everyone, including myself.
Amen. Amen. Beverly, someone in the chat, Stacy, made a comment that I thought was so important, that we've been talking so much about, of course, the children and the parents and the teachers, but those other staff, the cafeteria staff, the bus drivers, security people. Thanks, Stacy, for reminding us of that, because sometimes for bus drivers, I was a Head Start director for 3 years in the 70s and 80s. I used to have hair back then. And but I remember so much how the bus drivers were the first people to meet the children on the day, and how important they were in the life of children, you know, and of course, you know, the staff in the cafeteria. And so I think it's a reminder that it really, someone said earlier, it takes a village, that if we are to really be a supportive climate, it's a school climate. It's Dr. Fitzhugh as superintendent. I know these are the both burdens and opportunities of leadership that you have. But I think this is a wonderful time to remind the cafeteria staff and the bus drivers how important they are. The child who's reluctant to leave home, maybe after having been home for so much, the bus driver can be such a helpful transition person, you know, and giving them that capacity. And I think the bus driver would suddenly realize, gosh, I don't just drive a bus, I'm part of the educational process. So I'm so appreciate, Stacy, that you said that.
And our custodial workers and the nurses that are out there as well, putting themselves at risk every day.
Just wanted to say one last point for me as a parent and other parents. Orange Public Schools has a great program called Empowering Parents, Parent University. And I have to shout them out right here, right now, because that Parent University saved me. I met some incredible people, great resources. There's times where I got on there and just like cried because of all the stress that's going on with the pandemic, financially, just a lot. And so having that outlet for me as a parent has helped me with my own mental health. And so I have to keep Naomi well in order for my 3 boys to thrive.
That's
And
right.
so that university has helped me. We have a meeting tomorrow. We haven't had a meeting in 2 weeks because of spring breaks and all that stuff. But every Thursday, I look forward to logging in, if I'm dead tired from the week, I still log in and we do meditation. I just learned so much. Journaling in my book, my life has changed because of it. And so I'm just thankful and grateful.
Wow.
And so as a parent, just having that outlet and staying connected, as Samantha said, has helped me as a person. Thank you.
What a wonderful testimony to end our conversation.
Yep.
The comments are, you guys rock, and just keep up the great work. We're depending on you. And I hope parents will, get over the fear and the hesitancy and bring their children back to school. And I know that they'll be greeted. And someone else said, and show them lots of love. Love takes care of everything.
Amen.
That's right.
So thank you all so much. That concludes our panel conversation. You've been great, and I really appreciate each and every one of you.
We appreciate you as well.
Thank you,
Dr.
Beverly.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you. Kendra, thanks for all the organizational stuff.
Well
Oh,
done.
And Catherine, too.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Thank
we're
you.
reconnecting on the other Zoom. Just
Yep,
a reminder.
we are. We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget, we do
Take
have
care,
one separate
everybody.
section for the attendees as well. So
I'm
Beverly,
sorry.
the raffle for the attendees.
Oh, the raffle. That's correct. I'm sorry. I was too fast. We have a raffle.
Yes. So good morning, everybody. Again, thank you for participating. This has been such a great conversation. And so we have a little surprise for you. We have a raffle. So everyone who registered as an attendee has been entered in the raffle. So Catherine, if you can start. The name will be randomly selected. For Imprint made a great donation, as you can see from the image on the screen. So it's an outdoor cooler and a picnic blanket and a chair and Bluetooth headphones and a whole bunch of other stuff. So whoever the winner is, it will be mailed directly to you. So Catherine is going to spin the wheel and we're going to pick a winner. All right, let's see who's going to be the winner. Kendra, no. Amanda Blank. All right, Amanda.
Congratulations, Amanda.
I have your mailing address. I will reach out to you when the Zoom concludes. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Lynn for closing remarks.
Yes, this has just been an amazing morning. I so enjoyed this. We were packing so much into 2 hours, but I think it flowed well. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, congratulations to Ray and to Dale on their retirement, and many blessings to them. And thank you to all of our champions. Thank you, Ms. Donnell, who represented our parent group today. You were fabulous. And just thank you, everyone, for sharing. We're that much better off by hearing your comments and listening to what you had to share this morning. I hope everyone got their Panera food and enjoyed it, and I can't wait to get to mine. Have a great morning, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.